In this video, I'm going to talk to you about 9 ways you can lower your suspension risk when you're selling on Amazon. And just so that you know that I've been selling on Amazon for a while, here are my sales. We're at 1.1 million in sales in the last 12 months. Last 30 days is 117K. And I've been selling on Amazon for nearly 4 years at this point. Also, I did record a bunch of videos the same day, so my sales are just going to be the same for some of these videos. I really needed to bulk upload a bunch of these. The point is, though, that this is what I do full time. I made over $200,000 last year. I made $170,000 in profit the year before that. And this is what I plan on doing for a long time. And so I've thought quite a bit about these issues. The first tip, not a ton of people are going to like to hear, but if you have a proper invoice and a letter of authorization from each brand that you're selling, that's going to help a lot in these situations where Amazon is accusing you of anything. That is the closest you can get to actually following what Amazon is asking for. Amazon officially wants you to have these 2 things for every single item that you sell. There have been cases where this hasn't been enough and people end up still getting suspended or wrapped around in Amazon's AI detection system and things going wrong for people. But this is the most surefire way that you can actually keep your account safe for the long term. The thing is a lot of people aren't going to want to follow that, and the business model that I do is eBay to Amazon, and so that basically just means that we're not going to do that. And so here are some other tips in order to keep your account health safe. Probably the next biggest thing is to avoid dropshipping. So what is dropshipping? Dropshipping is basically where you list an item for sale and you have a source site that is cheaper, and when the item sells, you just go ahead and buy it from the source site and send it to the customer, and you collect the difference. Really cool business model. Very nice that you don't have to put any capital up front in order to do that. Unfortunately, Amazon really does not like this business model because it often ends up being a really bad experience for the customer, and they get very confused when a Walmart item ends up at their house when they purchased it off Amazon. Also, practically, it gets very tedious with placing a bunch of orders and keeping track of everything in your stock and all that. In a lot of cases, it's not even worth it. And especially in this case, Amazon really frowns on it. So many people get suspended for dropshipping. Avoid dropshipping if you are wanting to keep your account health safe. Also, there are a couple tips that are at the end that I haven't heard a ton of people talk about that I think are probably some of the most important tips in order to actually not get suspended. Okay, so on to the tips that are a bit more practical for people who do eBay to Amazon and online arbitrage. This third tip is to just avoid selling on listings where the brand itself is on that listing. If a brand is on a listing on Amazon, that's basically saying that they own that turf, that's their real estate, and they probably have brand registry, or at the very least might make that item a transparency program item. And either way, that's not going to be good for you because they can probably send you an IP claim, and it's on them whether they're going to even remove that or not once they send you a claim. Basically, you're just asking for trouble if you're selling on listings with brands. If you're going to do that, definitely have some kind of friend or experience or different knowledge of knowing that you're going to be okay if you sell on the brand, because just selling on a listing where the brand's on there is asking for trouble. There's no guarantee you're going to get a claim, but if you want to get an IP claim quick, just go ahead and sell on a listing where the brand is on the listing, and especially on one that sells quickly, because the brand is just going to say they're taking sales from me, let's just get them off the listing and send them a claim. The fourth tip is to just avoid items that are more likely to be counterfeited. And there's a couple of different ways that you can look at this. Number one is thinking about items that sell really quickly and for a lot of money, and then also items that are easy to be counterfeited. Which leads us to our fifth tip, which is to sell discontinued or slower moving items. Just in general, if an item is selling 15 times a month on Amazon, that's a lot less incentive for someone to go ahead and create a counterfeit item to sell that product versus something that sells 10,000 times a month and is $70. If you sell on listings that potentially don't have that many sellers, but then also don't have that many sales, you can still get a fast sale and avoid items that are more likely to be counterfeited. And so this next tip is kind of one that's a little bit harder to control, but if you have an older account, Amazon tends to treat you slightly differently. So the solution to this is you could potentially purchase an account that is older. That gets a little bit more tricky and complicated, but if you happen to have an older account, Amazon does tend to treat you a bit differently. And then another way that Amazon tends to treat you differently, from personal experience and from talking to a lot of other sellers and looking at the situations where people got suspended and where people didn't get suspended, is if they actually run their Amazon store like a business and do a relatively high amount of revenue. For example, I have a Discord group where we talk about selling on Amazon, and I am on Facebook quite a bit. And most of the people who end up getting suspended or end up getting a Section 3, they were usually people who were doing $15K a month or less. If you can get up to that $20, $30K a month in sales range, you're going to be a lot safer off because Amazon literally is making more money off of you. So it makes sense that they would, give you some special treatment. Whether or not that should be the case, that's not my choice to make. But from my experience, I've seen so many people get suspended who are doing more casual numbers than people who are doing more serious numbers. Okay, the second to last tip is one that a lot of people do not want to take to heart, but in my experience talking to so many sellers who have been suspended and so many sellers who haven't been suspended, most of the time the people who get suspended are FBA sellers. If you can find it in your heart somewhere to do a majority FBM, please do that, because FBA is Amazon's baby, and they do not want any kind of counterfeit problematic items in their warehouse. I think it has to do with legal ramifications for Amazon and also financial incentive if they were to suspend you and keep your inventory. As dark and shady as that is, Amazon sellers basically signed off their rights when they went to sell on Amazon that we can't really do much about it, and in their terms of service they can hold your inventory and your money, and if all of your inventory is at FBA, they have more financial incentive to suspend you. As dark as that is, you're much safer off doing FBM. I have not heard of as many FBM sellers getting suspended as FBA sellers. And then finally, our 9th tip, and this is one that I have not heard tons of people talk about, but I have seen this happen several times, or at least one time, is that you should never log into somebody else's account with user permissions, because if they get suspended, you will most likely be associated with that account. So I had a friend, he was helping another friend figure out how to sell on Amazon, and he ended up logging in to his friend's account with user permissions, and then the friend of his 3-4 months later ended up getting IP claims on his account, and he ended up getting suspended, and they also ended up suspending the other person's account as well. And the problem with that is, for the original person, basically their suspension appeal is going to depend on whether they can get the first account unbanned, which is a major problem. So just avoid logging into people's accounts with user permissions if you can, if you have an Amazon account. So here's the thing about this whole risk. Not one of these things alone will keep you completely safe, but if you do a majority of these things together, it's going to lower your chance of getting suspended by quite a bit. So definitely be mindful of how you're running your Amazon store if you want to continue selling on Amazon for a long time. So if this video was helpful, please subscribe and leave a comment down below. I'd love to hear your thoughts in the comments. Hope you guys have a great rest of the day, and take care.